So today we're going to begin this new lesson, Skyscrapers, which is on page 143. And if you take a look at the first page, guys, what about the first page? There is a picture of very tall buildings. Look at them. You see? So those are called what? These buildings here right in front of you are called what? They're called skyscrapers, okay? And why do we call them skyscrapers? Because when you look up at the sky, it's as if they are what? Scraping the sky. Scraping يعني تخدش in Arabic we say. Huh? Yeah. So basically that's what is going on. And from there the name came, you know? Okay, so it says here, what is the tallest building in your country and how old is it? I was told, guys, or I even checked Google and asked people that there is a skyscraper in Amman called Al Abdali skyscraper, if you know of that, all right? So it is said that it's the tallest building in Amman, and it is said that it was built in 2018. So I guess, you know, that's the highest or tallest building, all right? Now, question number 2, before you read questions, that's where we are on page 143, guys, all right? Why couldn't people build very tall buildings 100 years ago? Do you know, guys? Do you know why people couldn't build very, you know, tall buildings 100 years ago? Guys, ليه الناس ما قدروا يبنوا بنايات عالية زمان? Your grandparents. Why? All their houses were like one floor. They would make rooms next to each other and they would be one floor. Why couldn't they build, you know, tall buildings? Well, it's because basically they used what in order to build their houses? Mud and rock. Okay? And what allowed for these high buildings or tall buildings to, to reach this actuality and this, position is the use of what? Steel. Okay? And in their building. All right? Steel was used, all right? And that is the al-umdan al-hadid, guys. That's what was used in order to keep these buildings, rising and, in place, let me say. All right? And, and lots of new technology was included, in building that was not before, okay? That's why we have high buildings nowadays. And in the past, there weren't that many high buildings, okay? Let's take a look at question 3. What does it say in question 3? What does question 3 say? Sorry, question 3 say. Do you think we should continue building tall buildings? Why or why not? So are you with the idea of building tall buildings? So some people are with that idea. They agree. Do you know why? Because tall buildings save money. They save land as well, okay? That's what they do, okay? But some people are against that. They say that, having your own house, your own garden is better. And another thing is that, you have to share the noise with your, neighbors, share lots of noise, and share probably the hallway, of the building with your neighbors, share lots of things. And sharing sometimes is not that amazing, mostly with strangers who are not people who want to collaborate and be helpful, if you're that kind of person who is helpful, okay? Yeah, it's really, awful when you sometimes enter some buildings and you see this, stairs very dirty, there aren't lights in the building, maybe, that's really sad to see, like probably 20, 30, 40 people in the same building and are unable to collaborate and keep, the hallway, the stairs, looking nice, clean, and, with light, yeah. All right, let's move on to 144. And you have 144 It's right there, right on your screen. I don't need to open my book anymore since I have it on the screen. Here it is. You see, this is 144. See at the bottom, it says 144 here. So, okay. So what do we have in this or on this page? It says context clues. We want to take a look at these sentences. We want to make sure that we know the meanings, the meanings of the words in bold, okay? One of the tallest buildings in the late 19th century. So we're speaking about, tall buildings all over the world, all right? Was the 14-story Pulitzer building, okay? So there's a building in America, guys. It's called the Pulitzer building, okay? And how many floors did it contain? It contained 14 floors. 14 floors means 14 stories. This is a synonym. Floors and stories are synonyms, okay? ردائف لبعض, all right? Okay, so story means like the layer, guys. Sometimes some buildings have layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. So that's basically what it is, okay? Yeah. So it has 14 layers or 14 stories, okay? This building, the Pulitzer one, which was built in the late 19th century. I bet now it has more than 14, okay? Because it was rebuilt in the, using new technology, all right? And things have changed. All right, let's move on to the second sentence. This way of learning the meaning of the word by reading it in context, because sometimes, words change if they are in a different context, right, in terms of their meaning, right? So Caesar Pelli was the architect of the Petronas Towers. So there are towers which are called what? The Petronas, okay? And this man over here, this is the name of the man who was the architect. The architect means the engineer, okay? An architect is a kind of engineer that designs buildings. المهندس المعماري, guys, architect, right? He worked on the building for several years. Yeah, of course. This is not just any building, guys, all right? This is a very high skyscraper, very tall skyscraper, okay? With lots of, rooms, lots of floors. And so it requires, many years of work, or it required many years of work since it's, it exists and it's there. Now, sentence 3, we want to know what pleasant means, right? I bet you already know what this means, right? But let's just read it in the sentence, okay? A building with windows is more pleasant than a building without windows, okay? Yes, of course. So if you have a house or even a room, right? Yeah, you have a room in that building and you want to stay in it. If it has windows, probably you would stay in that room. You would enjoy it. Why? Because it's pleasant. Pleasant means, guys, it makes you happy. All right? It makes, the area, the room fresh, right? Yeah? It makes you, enjoy your stay in that room. Let me say, like what? Having built windows in it. But do you want to stay in a room that does not have windows? I don't think anybody would want to be in a room that does not have windows. It would be anything but pleasant, right? So pleasant means it makes you happy. And in Arabic, we say shirha, okay? Yeah, that's what we say. So let's take a look at 4. Architects had to find a way to prevent what? Skyscrapers from moving too much in the wind. Wow. In addition, like plus, another idea. When we say in addition, guys, that means I want to add another, sentence, another idea, another, condition or situation, all right? They wanted to make buildings as beautiful as possible. So, modern architects, when they built skyscrapers, or when they build skyscrapers in general, what do they take into consideration? 2 things. The first is that they don't want these tall skyscrapers to move because of the wind. So they need to use material. They need to use content, that makes those, buildings fixed and in place and not move. All right. Another thing is that, they had to put into consideration, that they wanted to make these buildings also beautiful, looking good, because they, high, or let me say tall buildings, look like blocks. They don't look that beautiful. So if you pass by some skyscrapers, you would see lots of glass, you would see mirrors sometimes, right? Colors, right? Why is that so? Because beauty is also something that should be taken into consideration when building skyscrapers. Okay, so in addition means, in Arabic we say بالإضافة إلى ذلك. So this is when we want to add another idea to the first. So this was the first idea, that is, they wanted to prevent skyscrapers from moving in the wind. And the second idea was that they wanted to make skyscrapers beautiful, or as beautiful as possible. During World War II, the centers of many cities in Europe were destroyed by bombs. During World War II, what happened? The centers of many cities, like downtown, let me say, Germany, but I mean the capital of it, downtown Moscow, maybe. Sorry, guys, about that. All right. So the centers of many cities in Europe were what? Destroyed. Maybe Paris, maybe London. They were destroyed by what? By bombs. So the centers means, guys, الوسط, اللي هي العاصمة، منطقة الوسط في العاصمة, guys, right? That's what we mean, because usually when a country is at war with another country, what do they trigger? They trigger the capital usually, and they trigger like areas where they, when these areas are destroyed, it's like the whole country is destroyed. All right. So the places where there are businesses, where the government, let me say, is established, and so on. All right. Yeah. This is the text, guys. Okay, let's begin and see what this text is all about. Okay, skyscrapers. Now we know what this is. All right. These are buildings that are very tall, and we can find them in many major cities in the world. Okay. Sometimes these skyscrapers are office skyscrapers. Sometimes they are residential skyscrapers. Residential skyscrapers means that people, residents, live in them, right? And they are very popular all over the world, mainly in America and in many European cities, and probably in, Tokyo, Japan, Malaysia, Yeah, we do have skyscrapers in Amman, but they are not among the highest skyscrapers. I think the highest skyscraper in the world is Khalifa Tower, Burj Khalifa in UAE. That's, I think, the highest skyscraper in the world. All right, let's see. Of course, usually we're going to talk about the history of skyscrapers first, and then, about modern. We're going to move to talk about modern skyscrapers. Okay, guys? So that's just how it's going to go here. Okay. In 1998, look, 98, what? Not many years ago, okay? The Petronas Towers in Malaysia became the tallest building in the world, okay? So we have towers where in Malaysia, Abraj Towers, and what? They became the tallest building in the world, because before 98, maybe another building was, taller than the Petronas, okay? Stealing the #1 spot from the Sears Tower in Chicago. So it seems, guys, listen, before the Petronas Towers were the tallest buildings in the world, what was taller? What was the tallest? I mean, not taller. What was the tallest? The Sears Tower. So there was a tower in Chicago called the Sears Tower, and it was the tallest tower, the tallest building in the world, before this came into existence. All right. So stealing means taking the #1 place. All right. 4 years later in 2003. So this is what? 1998, then 2003. So 4 years later, what happened? The Taipei 101 building. So how many floors from the number, from the title of the building? There are 101 buildings, right? Which means floors, I think. I would say floors, right? In Taiwan, stole the title from the Petronas Towers. So this became, you know, the highest building in the world after the Petronas. So Taipei 101 is taller than the Petronas and taller than the Sears Tower. So in order, we have, first of all, the highest is what? Of all is the Taipei. You know, less tall, let me say, is the Petronas, and the least tall is the Sears Tower, okay? It seems that no skyscraper can hold the title of the world's tallest building. So it's hard, guys, to say that this building is going to be the tallest forever. Why is that so? Let's think about this question. Why is it hard to, you know, have a building have this title forever? All right? Why? Simply because, you know, a country might decide that they want to build a new skyscraper which has more floors. That's it. And that's possible. That's the idea. Okay, it's just like bidding. All right, bidding means المراهنة والمزايدة. I'm sorry, مش المراهنة المزايدة. All right. For very long, but how high can a skyscraper go? Some experts believe that a mile high. So if I ask you in the exam, how high can a skyscraper go? You say what experts believe that it could go a mile high. All right. This number of feet, 5,280 feet or 1,609 meters. Okay, this is the highest that it can go, you know, according to our technology of nowadays, let me say. Okay, it is possible with the technology we have now. See, this is what they say. So this is the highest that a skyscraper can go. Now, a new paragraph. For centuries. You know what a century is? A century is 100 years. But for hundreds of years, this is what it means here. The tallest buildings were made of what? Stone. Stone means what? صخر, guys. Or hajar. The base or lower walls of a tall building had to be very thick in order to support the upper walls. Imagine, guys, when buildings were built of stone, if we wanted to make a second floor, you know what we had to do? We had to make the walls اللي هي الجدران, guys, we had to make them thick. All right, like if I wanted 2 floors, that means I would have to have the first floor الطابق الأول very thick in terms of, you know, the first floor walls. Can you imagine? So that it could hold the second floor and the third floor. Otherwise it could not. All right, or it will not. The taller the building was, the thicker, see, the taller the building was, that means the more floors you have, the thicker the lower walls had to be. Okay, one of the tallest buildings in the late 19th, what is it, this page 144 and then 145, let me see, let me admit ayah first. Lip and enlarge. So one of the tallest buildings is the what? 14th story Pulitzer building. So that was one of the, you know, tallest buildings. All right. So in New York, where was it built? In New York. And in order to support the upper walls of the building, the stone walls at the base were 9 feet. Can you imagine, guys? Huh? The walls of the first floor, can you imagine, were 9 feet. Can you imagine? 9 أقدام, 3 meters thick. Can you imagine? So there was really no first floor if you think about it. Maybe like corridors only. Because remember, the Pulitzer building had 14 floors. Look, 14 floors. How is this building going to carry the 14 floors when it's made of what? Stone and probably mud. All right. So the only way was to make the lower walls very thick so that it would be able to carry the higher walls, okay? Or the higher floors, let me say. And look, see the exclamation mark? So this is like really crazy for us nowadays. That's why there's an exclamation mark. So floor, we already spoke about the meaning of this word. Floor means layer in a building, right? It took 2 important technological advancements to make real skyscrapers possible. So 2 technological advancements took place, you know, in order to be used in building what? Modern skyscrapers, okay? So building skyscrapers in new ways were only possible after two technological advancements. Advancements means what? Developments, تطور, right? All right, or additional things that were included in what? In building. يعني صار في عندنا تحسن guys في عملية البناء وإضافات. All right, حديثة, technological, advancements. What are they in order to build real skyscrapers? So the Pulitzer building is not a real skyscraper. It's not a modern skyscraper. It did not include these two technological advancements that we are going to learn about in seconds. All right, look, if I ask you what were the two technological advancements that allowed for real skyscrapers to be possible or to be built, you tell me. Number one, the first advancement was the mass production of iron and steel. This is the first advancement, guys, the mass production. Mass means a lot of production. Very very much was produced in terms of iron and steel. Lots of iron and steel were produced. That's what it means over here when you say mass, like a lot. All right, iron and steel, these are what, let me say, things that were used in building, right?
حديد وطوب.
معادن, guys. All right, what?
الطوب الحديد.
Well, يعني you can say like these are some kinds of metal, أنواع من المعادن, guys, that were used to build skyscrapers. They are even used to build buildings right now, right? Okay. The second was the production of lightweight metal beams. كمان guys هون lightweight metal beams اللي هي عمدان الحديد. Beams معناها أعمدة. Metal, حديد. All right? We all use these when we build our houses nowadays and when buildings are built, right? And what about them? طلع ولا وصفهم. They are described as lightweight. They are not heavy. Okay, in the 1880s, what happened? Let's see what happened in this year. Architects, we already took this word. We said these people are engineers that design buildings. What did they do? They started using these beams to support the walls of buildings. So they stopped basically building walls which were thick because they were using what? Beams. Which beams? Metal beams to support the walls. Okay, guys? These buildings didn't need, see, they didn't need thick walls. So if you are using metal beams, you don't need thick walls anymore. So they could be much taller. Okay, guys? So basically, when did we stop having, the lower walls of buildings, when did we stop having them or building them in a way where they are thick? When architects began to use metal beams. Okay, guys? Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next paragraph. It says here, there were other advantages to building with metal beams. Okay, what were the advantages? If I ask you in the exam, what are the advantages? Advantages means the good points, hasanat, to building with metal beams. First of all, you tell me that, the walls, the lower walls were now thin. We could make use of the first floor as a room, as a, let me say, as an apartment, as a residential area, as an office area if we wanted to, In the past, the first floor was just corridors, It could not be made use of because the walls were so thick to the extent we did it, that we don't even have rooms, So now the building walls were thinner. This is an advantage. We said that. And they could have more windows. These are more advantages. هلا صار في مجال للشبابيك أكثر, which made the rooms much more pleasant. Of course, we said that. When you have windows, the room itself is more pleasant, okay? It makes you happy. It looks nice, you like being in that room and so on. With thin lower walls, there was more room for stores. Good. So sometimes, sometimes there's a building and the first floor is what in that building? It's a store. Okay, people make stores, or they have pharmacies, they have supermarkets in the on the first floor of that building or in the first floor of that building, right? With thin lower walls, and the walls, what about them, are thin, there was more room for stores and offices on the ground floor. So usually, you know, the ground floor of many buildings, what are they? Usually they are stores, يا إما محلات تجارية guys, or offices, مكاتب. The first floor of many skyscrapers and buildings, okay? It was also faster to build with iron and steel than with stone. Okay, this is another advantage, guys, that when you use iron and steel, they are lighter, أخف, and so it's faster to build, you know, a building or a skyscraper than, you know, than it was in the past. Okay, faster today to build a building than it was in the past because, you know, the items themselves, the ingredients that are used are lighter. So if I ask you this question in the exam, what are the advantages of using iron and steel and metal beams, even iron, steel, and metal beams in building? You tell me that now it is possible to have what the lower walls, you know, the lower walls could be thin, not like in the past because they had to be thick to carry the whole building because the steel itself carries the building. Another thing you tell me is that it's possible to have more windows. We can make use of the first floor by turning it into you know, into offices or stores, right? We said that, and we said something like, you know, building takes place faster. عملية البناء بتتم بشكل أسرع, right guys? We said that. All right. However, there was still one problem. What's this one problem? What is it? Let's see. How would people get to the top floor of a tall building? حلو. So we built a skyscraper. It's made of like 50 floors, 60 floors. How fun is it to climb the stairs? Oh my gosh, right? So how are people going to go to the tall, you know, to the last floor, to the 50th floor, to the 60th, 70th? You know, there are skyscrapers that have over 100 floors. How are they going to go there fast? Not by climbing the stairs for sure. Okay? So what are we going to do? Okay, this is what are we going to do? We're going to build something called the elevator. المصعد, huh? The solution, of course, was the elevator. Alicia Otis, who is this woman, invented the safety elevator. She is the inventor of the first elevator, okay? And first showed it. It means the elevator. It refers to what? The elevator. To the public in 1853. So this is the first time an elevator was built. Okay, guys? المصعد أول مرة تم بناؤه in this year, 1853. Okay? But this elevator was manual. كان هذا الelevator ماله guys? Manual يعني يدوي. And maybe there were workers who had people go up and down and so on. Okay? But by the year what? 1880s or by the 1880s, what happened? There were elevators run by electricity. هون صارت elevators المصاعد guys بتديرها ايش؟ الكهرباء, all right? Which were fast, of course, fast, light, خفيفة, right? Enough to use in skyscrapers, okay? So in 53, the elevator was invented. It was manual. In the 1880s, you know, it was no longer manual, and you know, it was switched, let me say, by inventors, by developers, you know, into electrical elevators, okay? They were developed, the elevators, okay? They were developed at just the right time, exactly. All right. As they say, need is the mother of invention, guys, huh? When you need something, you know, you invent it. There were other problems that architects and engineers had to solve. What other problems might there have been? They had to figure out a way to get water to all the floors. This is another problem. Okay, can we live on the 50th floor without water? No, we need water to go up there. It's hard to allow water to go up there. How are they going to work this problem? They had to prevent the buildings from moving. Is another problem. Too much in the wind. We mentioned this problem earlier, right? In the text. In addition, they wanted to make the buildings as beautiful as possible. So these were other problems. So if I ask you, what were some problems that, you know, engineers faced when building skyscrapers? So you tell me that they needed to think about how people could get to the highest floors or the tallest floors. They had to figure out a way to, you know, deliver water to those floors. They had to work on the issue of, you know, the movement of the building in the wind, okay? And at the same time, you know, high buildings or tall buildings, like I just said, they don't look beautiful. They don't look nice, you know, they look like blocks, let me say. So they had to work on beautifying such buildings, all right? Yeah. Let's move on to the last paragraph, not the last over here. No, this is not the last. Before the last. At the same time that architects were designing the first high-rise buildings, thousands of immigrants were entering the United States from Europe. So it's amazing that, you know, skyscrapers, you know, the modern ones were built and designed all over America, all over American big cities, you know, during the time many immigrants, were entering where? America and Europe. Immigrants means muhajirin, people coming from the Middle East, people coming from Japan, from China, from, I don't know, different parts of the world. You know, many people wanted to go to America because it was the, let me say, the promised land in a way. It was the land of the free, the land of opportunity for a very long time, right? And so many immigrants were attracted to the United States and wanted to go invest there, right? Yeah. And guess what? They went from Europe, not just from the Middle East. Okay, many Europeans went to the United States because anyway, America was established, you know, because English people fought with their mother country and decided to, you know, no longer make America, or you know, allow it to be a colony. They no longer wanted it to be a British colony. They wanted it to be an independent country, and they were, you know, its people, its residents, and so on. Yeah. So these people, who are we talking about? The residents, the immigrants now, huh? The immigrants who moved to America from Europe. What about them? They needed housing. أماكن سكن كانوا بحاجة إلها, right? Tall buildings could provide plenty of it in the cities. So, you know, tall buildings were, were great assistance, you know, to these, thousands of immigrants who came into the States. Before long, skyscrapers were rising in cities across the United States. So, you know, sometimes, like I said, guys, need is the mother of invention. Many immigrants were going to the States. They needed quick residency, and skyscrapers were the solution, let me say. Over the years, what happened? Many problems connected to high-rise buildings were solved, of course. Like what? Like the problem of water, you know, getting water to the buildings, like the problem of traveling to the high floors, right? We said that safety elevator was invented, and so on. And buildings got taller and taller. Okay. In 1909, what happened? Remember, we're talking about skyscrapers. A 50-story building was built in where? 50 stories. Where? Let's see where. So this is page 146. Let's flip it also and enlarge it. We want to try to finish the text at least, you know, for today. And we don't have to do any exercises today. Maybe tomorrow we'll work on exercises, okay? Let me enlarge this some more. So New York, in New York. And in 1913, what happened? Huh? In 1913, one with 6 floors. So with 60, I'm sorry about that. So in 1930, like a few years later, there was a building in New York that was built, and it had not 50, 60 floors, okay? Look, in 1931, a few years later also, the Empire State Building, another building was built, a third building, in New York was finished, and it was, look, 102 stories. What? High, can you imagine? So the Empire State Building was built in 1931. This is a building that is popular, you know, all over the world, all right? Yeah. Throughout the 20th century, فترة القرن العشرين, guys, all right? Like 19 something, all right? 1940s, 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you know? Other countries were building skyscrapers too. So if I ask you, was only America building skyscrapers in the 20th century? You tell me false. That's not true. Other, major cities all over the world, other countries all over the world we're also building skyscrapers as well. All right, to means also. Okay, so in Europe, the centers of many cities had been destroyed by bombs during World War II. Oh my gosh, like the bomb in Lebanon, right? Is that a bomb, or were those bombs? I don't know. So basically, many cities where in Europe were destroyed. Why? Because of bombs. Bombs, yani what, guys? Qanabil, right? They are, items that, blast the area and cause great destruction in an area, okay? Because of the ingredients that are in these, items, the chemicals and the, yeah, unfortunately. And they cause lots of death, besides the fact that they destroy, buildings, houses, streets, they cause, some kind of mass destruction, in the area. They destroy lives as well, unfortunately. So, during World War One, guys, during World War Two, major cities were destroyed in the war. And, these and city planners, what did they want to do? They wanted to rebuild cities. So when they rebuilt their cities, rebuild means إعادة بناء. They included what? Look, they included high rises in their plans. So another word for skyscrapers is high rises. كلمة تانية لskyscrapers, guys, is high rises, okay? So as you can see, city planners rebuilt many of the buildings exactly as they had been, but they also included high rises in their plans. This is when they built, the cities that were destroyed in the war, guys, all right? Most European cities today are what? A mixture of old and modern buildings. Old, guys, طبعا guys اللي هي بناياتهم العريقة اللي بنوها من زمان, and modern buildings, the skyscrapers we mean, okay? Tokyo. What about Tokyo? Exactly means just the way they were in the past. Tokyo did not have tall buildings for a long time because of earthquakes. So if I ask you this in the exam, why didn't Tokyo have high rises? You tell me, because this is a city, this is a country, that had lots of earthquakes. So what's the use of building, a high rise and then having it, destroyed in, seconds? But what did engineers do in order to have high rises? Look what they did. So what is an earthquake? Earthquake, guys, اللي هي إيش؟ زلازل, right? Or yeah, a sudden violent movement of the earth. This is what it is, and how it is explained or defined, all right? And then engineers figured out, يعني found a way, okay, how to keep a high-rise building standing during an earthquake. So they found out a way, okay? I was told by students, last semester that, that they put under the building like a big ball. Can you imagine? And when an earthquake takes place, it moves like this and like this and like this, and then what? It doesn't destroy the building, the earthquake anymore, all right? Because it moves along with the movement of the earthquake, and so it doesn't have to be destroyed in that way, or it isn't destroyed in that way. Today, there are many tall buildings in Tokyo. In fact, there are tall buildings in cities throughout the world. So now we have tall buildings in Tokyo because engineers figured out a way, to have those high rises, exist and not be destroyed in earthquakes. We said that. As the population of a city increases, the number of the high rises increases because they take less space. So why are skyscrapers built? Because they take less space. Like one building carrying lots of families or having lots of families in it. And we don't have to build each person a house, because when you build each person a house, you need more space, right? So we have the technology for skyscrapers, but do we really need them or want them? So now there are questions about the, having high skyscrapers. Is it a good idea to continue building skyscrapers? Do people really want to live in skyscrapers nowadays? That's what the writer is saying. Okay, do we need them? Mostly because skyscrapers are built, why, guys? For in order to establish, let me say, build offices and residential areas. But do people still want to live in these high rises? Do people need to work away from home? Do they have to do that nowadays? So many companies like us nowadays, even, universities, they work from home. So the writer is saying, why build high rises when you can now work from home? You don't have to go to the office anymore. So no need for lots of, buildings anymore. That's what he's saying. Yani a company could be just like 2 offices and that's it. So do we really need high rises nowadays? This is what he's saying. So, them, we mean high rises, okay? With the invention of computers, a company doesn't need to have all its offices in one huge building. So, as if this writer is talking about us right now. People can communicate by computer, like what we're doing right now. From where? From offices spread all over the city, or even from their homes. Like us, we are communicating from where? From home. Do we need a building? This is what the writer is saying. Okay? So if we're doing online learning, we don't really need a building, right? And do we want 200-story buildings? Why do we need 200-story buildings nowadays? This is what the writer is saying. Do people want to work and live that far above the ground? Like, do you like it when you are in an apartment that is 200 floors above the ground? Do you feel, that you're okay, that it's fine? Do you like that idea? So basically, the architects and engineers who are planning these new skyscrapers have to think about these questions, or they may build buildings that no one will use. Yes, I heard this before. There was a time, even in Irbid, that I heard that many apartments, in terms of the price, have gone down. You know why? Because nobody wants to rent them. Nobody wants them. Okay? So basically, if you want to build a building, you have to be sure that people need them. There's a kind of demand for them. Okay? Otherwise, it's better not to build, buildings for people, because as we can see, many people decided now they don't want to live in an apartment. They want to live in their own house. Okay? Yeah. All right, for today, guys, we are done. Okay. I hope you guys understood this lesson, and that now you know that skyscrapers are possible. And, I want you to know why they are possible. Okay. They are possible because of the new technological advancements that have to do with buildings, okay? In the past, they were not possible because people did not use the same material ingredients in order to build those buildings, because the technologies themselves did not exist at that time. And so when they built their, high rises, according to them, like even 2 stories or 3 stories, let me say, they had to make the lower walls thick. Can you imagine? Nowadays, that's not needed anymore. The lower walls are as thick as the walls that are higher than them, and so on. Okay, so anyway, let's stop here. Let me stop the recording, guys. And if you have any question, I would like to